Greetings and welcome to Matrix Revealed presentation 24. As I've said on previous videos, there is always something I forget to say and channels I forget to give a shout out to. So first off, we start with that. Lee Flat Earth British subscriber channel has featured Rudy the Great, which is Rudy Marley Ascot, who's made a wonderful video about cherubs. It's something I've thought of myself. I mean, how many times have you ever seen toddlers playing panpipes or long-stemmed trumpets? Are they even children that are being depicted or something else? And I must give a shout out to a lot more channels that are revealing so much more. Just as a reminder to myself, I've written it down here. As I mentioned 2 videos ago, ModWiz125 has covered a lot on Tatarian. I still got to watch those myself. But the one I have seen in the link that I was sent, thank you Michael, was absolutely brilliant and brings in how Feng Shui even comes into these buildings. And it's a very good observation that they don't have right-angled corners at the lower levels, and that's clearly must be something to do with the healing energy. But there are plenty of wonderful channels out there, and I'm not familiar with all of them, but I'm going to give off the top of my head shout out to UAP channel, Martin Leaker, Flat Earth British Incognito, and Flat Earth British subscriber channel, John Levi and John Levi Off Topic, Conspiracies Are Us, A Plain Truth for You, Quantum of Conscience, New Earth channel, and Wise Up Rudy Marley Ascot. What else we got? Captain Kirk and Niven come to mind. There are many more, of course, but there's a few to be going on with, and do please, if you know of any other channels with some other aspects to do with this whole Tatarian, do please put them in the comments and share the knowledge, because sharing is caring. But the subject I wanted to talk about was this pattern of how the good cop, bad cop routine works with applying names of one thing to the opposite. Now, one thing that has struck me, and I forgot to mention this many times, is the pattern you see with, for example, if you're from England, you are English. If you are from Scotland, you are Scottish. If you are from Japan, you would be called Japanese, and so on and so on. But there's always exceptions to the rule with this. And one that comes readily to mind is, why is it Deutschland and yet they are German? Why is it Holland or the Netherlands and they are Dutch? What if it is this shuffle of people and they are Dutchlanders from Dutchland or Deutschland, and they have reapplied the term German? You only have to think about where these wretched banking dynasties come from, and also where they settled and started their deceitful takeover or ongoing systematic deceitful takeover of the world. And look also where all the plagues seem to have started as well. They all seem to be centered around there. As I've said before, or have suggested before, they've come through a portal at Mauritius, more righteous or more riches. They've kept a lot for themselves, hence you have more retained in Mauritania, which I think applies to the entire continent of Africa. They have deliberately been held down and restricted more than any other continent. The people, even today, suffering through starvation and famine through these artificially created wars. And as I suggested, they've gone up they've wormed their way up the Nile and created the United Kingdom of Egypt. Obviously, the United Kingdom is a term applied to the British Isles. But the Tatarian Empire was worldwide, and I would suggest that the centre of learning was originally Ireland or Eire, or island, and you have the mythological island off the coast of that called High Brazil, and it's also known as the Emerald Isle, probably a reference to the Emerald Tablets and also the Emerald City in The Wizard of Oz, because they put these things in plain sight also. And I wonder about country names like Belgium. I mean, what is the bell? Is it a reference to Baal? There's so much more to this. I would suggest that these parasites work just like any other virus. They will worm their way in and then start attacking within the human body, the immune system, but on a worldwide, or the scale of the plane, they've gone for the centre of learning, which I would say was Ireland. Even in the official narrative, it is said to be the place that the wealthy sent their children to be educated. And then, as a complete reversal, after the potato famine and the enslavement by the royal family of England, and the slave trade and forcible moving of Irish people, then it became the derogatory jokes about the Irish being stupid. The same thing applies between Germany and Austria. Apparently, the Austrians are regarded as the butt end of jokes in Germany. But of course, this is all deliberate as part of this divide and conquer at a slightly more subtle level. But it is always to generate a negative energy. But fortunately, there are enough of us that are starting to wake up and see these patterns with everything. I must also give another shout out from 2 videos ago to ModWiz125 channel. I've only seen the one video that he has done on Tataria, and he makes a very good observation about there being no 90-degree angles on these Tatarian structures, especially at the street level. And it does bring in the connection with Feng Shui in the energy sense. And thinking about it, with a lot of these buildings, they don't have right angles. They have slightly shallower angles. So instead of having the right angle, you will have this sort of shape. So you've got like 2 probably 45-degree angles and then a short section. And that does seem to tie into this. What's also amazing when you think about things like the electric parks, which always have water, how they always manage to be destroyed by fire. Is fire something new? Was there no method of pumping the water out to put these fires out, for example? Because there certainly is the technology to pump water when you look at the number of fountains and things in these old photographs. Photographs, of course, devoid a lot of the time of any people and look to be completely deserted, which is why you get the term Freemasons, because anybody can stick a overlaying stone saying that they built this, but clearly they didn't. You've only got to look at the ridiculous narrative. Then, of course, there is these insane asylums and the sheer size of those and the stories of them being overcrowded. I mean, how do you estimate what size of building you would need to turn into an insane asylum? Again, I would suggest that this is a twist. It is probably some sort of mind healing, or even possibly the residents of the Tatarians, because this seems to be something that's not been touched on by anybody really, about where did all these Tatarians live. I mean, possibly they did live outdoors. The climate seems to have been very, very different. Looking at the old maps, the Sahara Desert doesn't seem to come in existence until the 16th or 1600s or 1700s. There's a small area, but there's a lot of rivers being clearly shown in high detail on these older maps. And also the pigmentation of these local kings in Africa is not what you would expect to see. And this whole idea of the slave trade from Africa, it seems that a lot of these darker skinned people were already there. But as we know, history is not our story, it is what is imposed upon us, and this is coming out more and more. I'm going to say that I'm pretty certain that a lot of these churches are still commissioned, and I'm not talking about in the religious sense. They're still commissioned in that they are still operational, they are still harnessing the free electricity from the atmosphere, but they have shut off the healing and benevolent abilities of these buildings and kept the free part for themselves whilst imposing a payment and debt system on the rest of us, debt being death or dead, and you only have to look at the words associated with so much is always centered around death. The corporations, for example, and the more you sort of start looking into this, you will see this repeat pattern of the word death comes up over and over again. But we don't want to dwell on the dark side, as I don't know if I've said this on this video because I started to make this and then had to stop and start again, but there are more and more of us starting to see through all this, and it is very clear that the energy of love and radiating out that love is far stronger. And don't be fooled by all the fear porn that is being put out. That is all to lower our vibrations, when it is quite clear that the dark side are in turmoil by the speed they are trying to impose things such as vaccines. They are in a panic because there are more and more waking up. This collective consciousness, these shared thoughts are getting stronger and stronger, and we are winning this spiritual battle. There is no two ways about it. As I've said before, once you go past this fear of death, they have nothing that they can throw at you. They have no power over you. You can walk with the Grim Reaper and he will not be able to say, do this gesture at you, because no, he has no power over us. Whether it be real or not doesn't matter. The collective sort of idea of this figure with a scythe, again, Scythia, the older civilization that Tataria is said to have come from, is a reference in that, and harvesting as well. Also, as I've touched on about musical terms, the sinfonia. I mean, you've got a reference to phonetics, phonies. Think also about what else you get from that. You get Viennese masks, hiding behind masks. And of course, Vienna and Venetian blinds. It's not just deaf Phoenicians. And unfortunately, there are still a lot of people who are Venetian blind and deaf to Phoenicians. But we are winning this slowly and surely, and we are doing it from a position of love. So stay in that power, because we will win this. We have won this. This is just a realm that is subject to time, and as I've said before, and someone originally said this to me, you can't take the cake out the oven until it is ready. It is still baking at the moment, but it is all coming together, and next year, as going by this stupid calendar, this Gregorian calendar that we've got imposed upon us, which, funny enough, the secret societies don't seem to use. They seem to go with the older Julian calendar. But 2020 is going to be a huge turning point. If we go with the fake narrative about the so-called Second World War, was it 1943 with Stalingrad was the turning point? Well, this is the Stalingrad for the dark side, because they are in retreat. They know it. There are those of us like myself that know it and are starting to see through them. And this is only going to escalate, because this collective consciousness has a wonderful way of bringing things to us. A lot of you have said about that you're on your own. Well, we think about on your being alone is also all one. If you are not still in your mind and happy within yourself, then how can you help out others anyway? That is all part of this process. Remember, it always goes the opposite way first. Same as with where your gut feeling comes from, your solar plexus, the place of the sun. The energy goes down to the two lower chakras below that before you have to send it back up again. So you will always have to go into the darkness to find the light. This conforms with everything, even if you think about these modern day scrying mirrors. You've got to switch them on to allow the light to come through on the screens, and then there is form. But something else I was thinking about as well, the Garden of Eden and the Adam and Eve story, the fig leaves. Think about what that's really saying. When you are self-conscious, you are self-aware. I think that is what the fig leaf is all really about. It is not so much covering up the genitalia, but now being filled with a self-awareness, and I think that is what it is an allegorical reference to. Cool, that was a bit of a tongue twister to say. Anyway, keep speaking your truth and don't feel disheartened. There are a lot of people that will refuse to accept this because they are externally controlled. You will start to see more and more glitches with people because this is a matrix, it is a holographic program, and the dark side are trying to manipulate things, but they are running out of time, seriously. Time is actually working against them. So I will say peace and love and Tatar for now.